What's up, everybody? In today's video, I'm going to be going over the top 5 defenders that you need to play for solo queue in Year 7 Season 4 of Rainbow Six Siege. Let's get straight into the video. Number 5 is going to be Kapkan. Kapkan is an outstanding operator for solo queue just because of the kill potential that he has, but also if you're solo queuing and you're just playing ranked in general, people are less likely to look for his traps because they're not droning properly, they're not really taking it seriously, and if they are, well, you're wasting their time by making them check every single doorway or by droning every single doorway. So, you're always going to get some semi-usefulness out of him, even if your traps are shit. They're still having to check every single doorway. So he brings some inherent fear factor when you're playing the operator. But also, if you do know where to put his Kapkan traps, it can be free damage onto people, and that explosive, when it does explode, can give you information on where the attackers are pushing from. So that's very useful. And then if you are to double up or triple up his traps on one doorway or window for that matter, you can actually get free kills on the people. So that in itself is pretty powerful, especially if you don't have the best aim and maybe you're not looking too good in the kills for this game. You can just play Kapkan and hope to God that they walk in one of your trap doors, and you can actually get free kills. So the ability to get free kills, 5v5 gun skill meta game right now, is very, very important. He's very easy to play. He has somewhat of a high skill ceiling in terms of where you put his Kapkan traps, on what doors, on what archways, which side you put him on, right, left or right, forward or backwards. And his SMG is very easy to use. He has the 1.5 times scope, and you can put an extended barrel on it because it has almost no recoil, and with the damage being buffed on extended barrels, this is actually pretty good. Speaking of his loadout, let's just go into it. He has the primary options of the 9x91 VSN, which is of course the Russian operator SMG that also comes on a zombie, and then he has the Sausage 12 shotgun, which is again the Russian shotgun. It's a pretty good shotgun, honestly. The damage is nice, it has a clip, so the reload time is nice, the range is very nice, but mostly the rate of fire is outstanding. So if you want a good shotgun, this is definitely one for you. But his SMG is just pretty reliable, so I would just run that, honestly. And then he has either the GS18 or the PMM. I run the PMM because it's 61 damage, which is pretty good. If you want more ammo though, let's say you're running the shotgun and you need a secondary with a lot of ammo, then I would run the GSH. And then he also has the secondary options of impact grenades and nitro cell. Always bring a nitro cell. It's again a free kill with an explosive. What a lot of people do is they'll set up Kapkan traps, one on each doorway or archway or window, to really get the attackers to low HP, and then they use their nitro cell to finish them off and to get those free kills, especially on the shield players like Osa or Monty. That being said, the prime loadout that I would assume is the 9x91 SMG, the PMM, and the nitro cell. With that out of the way, just to summarize, like I said, he's a very easy operator to learn. He's very easy to play. Even if you don't put his traps down, the knowledge that the attackers have of you playing Kapkan is enough to waste time and to put fear into their hearts, which is inherently useful. He does have a low to medium skill ceiling, meaning you can't really do much with him in terms of progressing as a good Kapkan player, but his gun is amazing. You can get some free kills with him, and he's always going to be good in the solo queue environment because when people aren't stacked and they're not comming with each other, Kapkan gains in power. Number 4 is going to be Bandit. Bandit is an amazing operator right now. Not even going over his gadget, he has some of the easiest weapons to control in the entire game. He's also a 3-speed and he has a nitro cell, so that being said, that's already a lot of great utility. But if you actually go into his gadget, of course he has wall denial, but he is the only person that can counter EMP grenades because you can just trick the wall, right? He's the only person that can counter Thatcher because you can just trick the wall. You can K-trick, that is true, but it's much slower than bandit tricking. Bandit tricking is much more reliable, easier to do. So bandit tricking, if you learn how to do it, it can be one of the most useful things in this meta right now to learn. I've talked about this a lot in my other videos, but bandit is definitely useful for the meta that we're currently in. You also don't even need the bandit trick, right? Realistically, you could just put all 4 of your bandits down, and now you have a 3-speed with a nitro cell and a really good weapon that you can run around and do anything with. So the versatility that he could be played as is very high because you can play as a roamer, you can play as an anchorer when you bandit trick, you can play as a lurker for your nitro cell. So there's just a lot of playstyle potential with him. Any type of player can play him because of this, so he's very easy to pick up, and his loadout is very easy to pick up as well. Speaking of which, he has the option between the MP7 and the M870. Most people sleep on the M870. The M870 is actually a very, very good shotgun. That being said, the MP7 is just always going to be better than a shotgun because it's an SMG in a one-shot headshot game. It also has 32 damage, absolutely 0 recoil. So I mean, this thing is an absolute powerhouse of an SMG. The only thing that it kind of does suck at is the damage. It's not a lot of damage, but if you're running the extended barrel, then it's not really an issue. Then he has the P12 handgun that comes on all the other German operators. Doesn't really have another choice other than that, so I'm not gonna really go too in depth on that. And then he also has the barbed wire wire or the nitro cell. Like I said, the nitro cell is going to be your best bet because you have an explosive and kill potential, which is very powerful. But if you want to bring his barbed wire for drone denial, you actually can. What you can do with barbed wire as bandit is you put the barbed wire down and you can put a bandit battery inside the barbed wire. This will electrify the barbed wire because it's metal, and if any drones pass through it, they'll get electrified and die. So it's very good for drone counters, Flores counters, stuff like that. It does damage to players, and really any attacker gadget that gets in this is going to die, right? So that's pretty useful. You can also put bandit batteries on deployable shields as well to electrify the shields to make it harder for the attackers to destroy the shields. So like I said, one of the things that's so good about bandit, especially in this meta, is his versatility, but also he has a high skill ceiling because you can bandit trick with him, and he has so much versatility with his bandit batteries that he's very easy to play, very easy to master, and if you do master him, he can be a huge force to be reckoned with, and that's why he's in my number 4 spot. Coming into my number 3 spot is going to be Mute. Mute is all around just a well-rounded operator. I actually did just make a Mute guide, which I'll put in the top right if you want to know more about this operator. He's very versatile. Just like Bandit, he has 4 gadgets that he can place down that deny drones, and this being said, they also deny walls, right? So you have so much potential with what you can do with the ability. Also, it denies a lot of attacker gadgets like Yana clones, Dokkaebi calls, Lion scans, etc. So being able to negate all of that, especially when all 3 of those operators are very good right now, is very powerful. And if that wasn't enough for you, he can deny any drones that are within the radius, and he can act as wall denial because people can't use their abilities whenever their abilities are inside the mute jammer. So he's actually very, very good. He's also a 3 armor, and because of his SMG-11 and shotgun combo, you're sitting on site anyways. So being able to have that extra health when you're not going to need the speed is actually very good, and I consider that to be a buff to him, especially for his playstyle. Being as it that you can put these mute jammers down in the prep phase and leave them, you can actually use these mute jammers for your roamers. Like you can give them a mute jammer so where they can't get droned out and they inherently are going to waste more time, and then you can go back to site, right? So there's a lot of versatility with these mute jammers. There's a lot you can do with them. He also has the shotgun for side setup, which means you can be even more versatile with how you play him, where you play him, and where you put your jammers down. So overall, versatility powerhouse. He also has a nitro cell, right? So being able to have an explosive to kill people is always going to be great, especially when you have a shotgun that can make holes that you can throw your nitro cell through. He's overall just a very good operator. If we actually go into his loadout screen though, he has a lot of good options. He has the MP5 or the shotgun. They did take away his MP5's 1.5 times scope though, so most people just opt for the shotgun SMG-11 combo. You could kind of go either or. I prefer the shotgun just because I can set up sight, and I trust myself with the SMG-11 that I don't really need an MP5, but I mean, other than that, pretty good weapons either way. Going into his secondary weapons, he has the option between his pistol or his SMG-11. Always go for the SMG-11 over a pistol. It's an automatic weapon versus a semi-automatic weapon. That shouldn't even be really anything that I have to talk about. And then of course, like I said, he has a nitro cell or the bulletproof camera. I would always bring a nitro cell. Bulletproof cameras are great if you're actively on them, but in a solo queue environment, you're not going to be, because you're going to have your gun up knowing that your teammates aren't really ever going to be on those cameras. So that being said, that is his loadout. He's a very versatile operator with the way you can play him, the guns you can bring, and overall is very powerful, especially in a meta that has information as its king. Coming into my number 2 spot is going to be Smoke. Now, just like Mute, he's always been a reliable operator in terms of being able to use his gadget on every single site and having the versatility of that shotgun and being able to use his gadget wherever you want to. He's very easy to pick up, easy to master, unless of course you can't control his gun, but his ability is always going to be well-rounded and useful no matter how they change him and his loadout. So overall, just a well-rounded operator. He's probably the best defender in the entire game in terms of consistency, the skill ceiling that you have with him, other than my number 1 spot, of course, which has the highest skill ceiling in the entire game, but we'll get into that later. With Smoke, it really comes down to how good of a smoke player you are. He's one of those operators where you have to have a lot of game sense to use him in an extremely effective way. If you don't know how zoning works, if you don't know how controlling the map works, if you don't know when to use his smoke grenades, if you don't know how to control his SMG, if you don't know how to set up sites in favor of your smoke shield setup, if you don't know where to put your shield and how to use shields to hold off attacker rushes, right? All pretty medium to high advanced topics, then you're not going to play him effectively. But even if you do pick him up, you have a shotgun, you have an SMG-11, you have smoke grenades, so at the very bare minimum, you're still going to be very useful. You also have a deployable shield, right? So even just putting down your utility, setting up a site, you're going to be a great buff to your team, and just the action of selecting this operator, which again is the mark of a good operator, right? But the more you get to learn him, the better he becomes, and he has an extremely high skill ceiling with what you can do with him because of the site setup versatility that his shotgun brings and his deployable shield. So Smoke overall, very, very easy to get value out of, unless you're on console and you can't really control the SMG-11, then I'd understand it not being easy, but he's easy to get value out of. He's very easy to master, very high skill ceiling, very useful overall, very well rounded, and I don't see him not being in every single content creator's top 5 unless they nerf him heavily. Now, who could possibly be more versatile than Smoke? Coming in my number 1 spot to answer that question is going to be Azami. Now, I've debated putting Smoke in number 1 and Azami in number 2, but if we're talking about for solo queue ranked, I definitely think Azami outshines Smoke because because Azami, you can play her however you want without really getting in your teammates' way, but with Smoke, you have to have site setups in mind, you have to be anchoring, you have to put down a deployable shield, and that in itself can get in your teammates' way if they're not playing around it. If they're not playing around it, a lot of that site setup goes to waste, and a lot of times people don't know how to set up site, and they'll set it up wrong, so when you set it up the way that you want to, your teammates might get mad at you or just change it up completely. Also, she's easier to play because she doesn't have an SMG-11, she has her SMG, so in terms of solo queue ranked for the broad majority of players, especially on console, I definitely think she outshines Smoke in the solo queue meta. Now, if we were to talk about really good players, if we were to talk about PC players, if we were to talk about people who actually knew the meta, which is not the majority of the player base, by the way, then Smoke would be number one. That being said, I'm going to stop comparing her to Smoke and actually talk about her. Her ability is essentially a deployable shield that you can throw anywhere. Now, if you thought having one deployable shield on Smoke was really, really good, imagine having 5 that you can throw literally anywhere. So very, very powerful. She also has a deagle that can set up site just like Smoke shotgun, and then she also has impacts if you don't want to waste the site setup with a deagle, you don't want to waste the time, or she has barbed wire for sound cues that you can use to swing off of your zombie barricades from to get easier kills, which is personally what I would do. Just to further prove my point, going into her loadout, she has again her SMG, but she also has the ACS-12. Now the ACS-12 is not that good of a weapon. The capacity that it has, 30 rounds, is very good. The range is very good. The damage is very good. The recoil is minimal if you have on the right attachments. She has a plethora of scopes on that weapon, so it is, you know, kind of decent, but compared to the SMG, it's just not even close, right? So I would always run the SMG, and then she has a deagle, like I said, and then impacts and barbed wire, like I said. Now, going further into the barbed wire topic, barbed wire inherently, especially if used correctly, is information. Having information whenever you're in a gunfight is very good, especially if they don't have information on you. You know, I'll give you an example. If you're behind a zombie barricade and they break the barbed wire right next to you, that's information that you can use to swing off of that zombie barricade and get a free kill. Now in this game, peeker's advantage is a huge thing because of the way that server lag works. If you wide swing somebody, you're gonna see them for a lot longer than they're gonna see you, and they're gonna have a lot less time to react. That being said, if you have deployable shields, this makes it a lot easier because you have information on them, you can swing them off of your shield. Well, they are only able to shoot your head because again, you're behind a shield. Not only does she bring one of these, but like I said, she brings 5, and 5 that you can throw anywhere, making it even more versatile. So overall, Azami is very good. Like I said, she's very easy to learn because you just throw her kunais anywhere and you essentially have deployable shields. Her SMG is very easy to use, but if you thought Smoke had a high skill ceiling, Azami's skill ceiling is absolutely insane. I've gone into every single map with Azami because I make TikToks about like really good Azami spots for her, and I've scoured maps making the best lineups that I possibly thought I could, and I helped a lot of people in doing this because their skill ceiling is so high. But then I watch like pro players and Challenger League players, and they're covering up angles, or they're making little pixel anglers with their barriers that I would have never even fathomed to think of, right? So the skill ceiling is immense, and because of her SMG and her barbed wire, using gunfights with her skill ceiling is very, very powerful. And in a solo queue environment, you're just going to absolutely shit on everybody if you play Azami, and especially if you play her correctly. That being said, that's why she's in my #1 spot, and that's pretty much it for the entire video. If you like this video, sub the channel down below. My name's Alka. I post 4 educational Siege videos every single week, as well as TikToks almost daily. If you want me to coach you for absolutely free, join the Discord server down below. Like the video if you liked it. Again, my name is Alka, and I will see you on the next video. Later.